Good morning, everyone. My name is Nakib, and welcome to Making Macs Feel More Like Macs, User-Centric IT Management. I'm going to take some time here to talk a bit about how we've approached modernizing our environment to bring enterprise Macs to feel a bit more personal, right? So getting away from all the gripes, we're trying our best to get away from all the gripes that we can face from our end users. Things don't work, or I don't know what's really happening. Try to go around what technologies we use, or the basics of what the technologies we use, and more or less why we kind of choose to use them. First of all, I'm Nakib. I'm a junior systems engineer. This is only my second year as an admin, and also my first time here at Mac Admins. I was awarded the Charles S. Grant First Time Speakers Award, so thank you to the foundation for letting me be up here. Thank you. It's been great, and honestly, I'm so grateful to meet everyone, and everyone's been so gracious. I hope I can come here every year. We can get into it. So, what does user-centric mean? To us, user-centric means ease of use, right? Just how you buy a Mac from the Apple Store, you go home, you turn it on, you get ready, you're good to go. We want to give a bit of power to the user, but not too much so that they can break it. Our user base is a lot of developers, a lot of creatives, devs tend to know a bit more than they should, as we all know. We want it to be fast. We want it to be, quick, snappy, compared to, some of the gripes our Windows teams faces. And anything that we develop, we want it to be verbose. So why are we doing what we're doing? What's the point of it? Is there anything that the users should know? But not too crazy. Also, the last thing I want to touch on today is community. So a big part of our user base, well, actually, it's a fleet of around 250 to 300 Mac devices. So it gives me the opportunity to actually get to know everyone who has a Mac, thankfully. So I joke around with everyone saying that if you own a Mac, you'll probably hear from me at the company. I really like to get involved with all of our users and be open to any of the feedback that they really want to give us to make the environment a bit better. This also may mean something different to you. So I'm a consultant for New York Life, which is a highly regulated industry. So we have to accommodate for quite a lot of restrictions, and also any requirements that our security teams come up with, and we really need to pay attention to what we kind of design and what we're honestly integrated with. So what about a Mac? So in my opinion, a Mac is intuitive. It's also empowering, so you have a lot of options that you can do. You can customize it to as far as you really want to go. But also, it's clean. It's minimal, right? We like to throw around the phrase "it just works" as much as we throw around ironically here. But we want to get to that point of just telling our users, or having our users already know that, hey, if you own a Mac, it just works. We're a ways off from that, but that's the whole point of the philosophy that I kind of want to discuss today, and essentially getting to that point. So this also comes into creating a place for not just the end users, but also helping out our support teams. So we'll get quite a few escalations from our support teams who are majority Windows-based techs who may not know how something works on macOS, or if it does work the exact same way, they don't know where to find it. So I want to create this collaborative environment for IT and our users. We want them to all kind of understand what we're doing to some degree, and I don't want to create generally black boxes with all the tools that we design. Because it can come into, hey, just run this policy. If a technician reaches out to me and say, hey, run this policy, this is what it does behind the scenes, and if you want to take a look at it, this is what it does. So we actually design or write documentation for both end users and our support teams. One's obviously a bit more technical than the other, but it's what we really try to do. We also want to give some power to the end user. So if you run into some issues, right, you don't want to instantly call up support. Maybe we have some tools that are ready for you. We have a lot of, funnily enough, DNS issues that I say DNS issues. But we will design a policy to set the internal DNS servers that you require when you're on our corporate network or the VPN. So we'll make an announcement, say, hey, if you guys are running into these issues, go ahead, get into self-service, go run this policy, you guys will be all set. And we'll talk about community and how we kind of talk to everyone in a bit. I want to give them a bit of what's it called, initiative. I want to be able to give them some agency on what they really need and what they kind of want to do. So I want to also make sure anything that we design is not too intrusive, right? Something that feels like it's part of macOS. While also allowing the users to feel like, hey, the guys know what they're doing, and the tools that we design are functional and clean and what is it called, easy to use. So, a new environment. Our users are defaulted to Windows. So when you come into the company, you get a Windows machine, no choice, until you request a Mac device. So what ends up happening is our users are using a Windows device, getting accustomed to all the corporate tools, all the websites, anything like that on a Windows machine for, say, about 2 weeks, and then they end up getting their Mac, which they requested. So they swap over from the Windows environment to an enterprise macOS environment, which for us can be quite different from a personal Mac environment. We go through the Microsoft suite, so your whole dock is Microsoft. We don't actually do an internal, like what it's called, VPN. We go through an application. So a lot of users can get confused, right? It's like, where is everything? How do I, what is it called? Do I have to register for, how do I get into my Office account, or how do I get to the VPN? Because it could be slightly different. But we want to, the first thing I want to kind of talk about is, well, how do we get past this issue that was coming up? So originally, if you were getting your Mac deployed, all the questions must be asked to the technician. If you didn't ask the technician, you wouldn't have your answers, or you have to end up reaching out to somebody else from either support or even engineering. So we wanted to bridge this gap, because from a Windows environment, you'll practically get everything. It's logged in. It's set up for you. You just sign in and you get going. I wanted to bring that back over to macOS when I started about 2 years ago. But at the same time, also, I want to talk a little bit down the line of bringing the personal feeling of Apple and macOS back into an enterprise environment. Again, we are so restricted in a bunch of the stuff that we do that we'll use some open source tools we'll talk about to kind of bridge that gap and bring us back into that, what it's called, feeling like you're actually using a Mac and not just, it's called a Windows machine with, macOS. A Windows machine that looks like Mac. All right, the philosopher's quarrel. So anything that we design, I really spend a lot of time with my manager, who couldn't be here today, talking about what we're designing, why we're designing it, and the ideas behind it. So what is the end goal? Why do we want to implement this, and will it impact our users? How will it impact our users, right? I like to really do a lot of visualization and breaking down. I'll show us a little Visio right after this. And even physical paper and pad. So I'll actually write down how I want something to look, whether we're designing via Swift Dialog or Swift UI, whatever it may be. I really like to draw something out, present it to either my managers or even to the stakeholders that we're designing for. I also very much like to talk about edge cases. So when we're developing POCs, I'll bring up, hey, if the user does this, we'll have an issue. Or if the user doesn't do this, we'll have another issue. Identifying those potential breakpoints is obviously a big part of what we do, and either accommodating for them or alleviating them as best as possible. So the big thing that I ask myself is, well, what will the user see? How will they perceive this? And number two being, how disruptive will they be? I'll talk about two things that are actually quite disruptive that we designed, but necessary. So do the pros outweigh the cons? So here's the process. So we do a lot of talk about POCs. I do a lot of work to just build something out just to show whether it's my manager or build out into betas. This is an example of a Visio that he had designed for something upcoming that we're all struggling with, which is passwordless environment. We're trying to get there, can't obviously get rid of file vault, but this is what we kind of showed to bring up to the lead handling the effort. So this I'll use both to show to management as well as in our own architectural and design records for our own documentation for any tools that I design or anything that we end up creating, right? We want to do a project outline. I really like checklists, small wins or small implementation requirements. And also, I think this comes a little later down the line is technical limitations. So we do a lot of work with webhooks going into Power Automate because we don't have an integration. Or we don't have an LDAP integration. So I do a lot of work pulling out information from Jamf and then sending it out, whether it's to myself or to our end users, which we're trying to design a bit more. So understanding those technical limitations, which will come down during the POC, and communicating those to both stakeholders and your bosses is a very, very crucial thing, because you don't want to promise something that you can't deliver on. Also, let's say it again, consider user error and disruption. So users break things. We love that. And we want to try to avoid users breaking things. So as much as I want to give power to our users, I want to put them, give any tools with guardrails so that they don't go ahead and say, or cancel something, or break something, or not do a software update, or whatever it may be. So, an intro to Swift Dialog. I think we all know what Swift Dialog is. If you don't, please look at it. It is amazing. When I first started, we actually didn't have any sort of tool to communicate with the end user on device. So everything was going out via either corporate comms or emails or direct Teams messages. So we had started to look into what we kind of wanted to do to bridge that gap. I wanted to start sending information, or even just doing policies with user interaction. And we landed on Swift Dialog. Swift Dialog, I think we have quite a few workshops and speaks or talks this week about using Swift Dialog. I'm not going to talk about it crazy amount, but I more so how we're using it and why we chose to use it the way we do. So it's open source, versatile tool for user interaction and prompts. It is very, very easy to use. If you have 5 minutes in Bash, you can get this up and running. So I took my very first task when I first started was to get accustomed to Swift Dialog. CLI based, so you can implement it into practically anything that you want. You can run scripts from Jamf, you can run things locally through a daemon or anything of that nature. And also it's widespread and actively supported. So I do a lot of work pulling from all the open source tools and all the guys who've developed things. There's a lot of influence I have from Dan Snelson and his Set Up Your Mac. I don't talk about it in this presentation, but we took Set Up Your Mac and we actually converted it into a patch manager. So we don't do VPP. Again, I'll talk about that. So we're actually packaging all the applications, uploading them to Jamf, and managing them manually, which I hate. But to make sure all those critical New York Life applications are up to date, we're running that as a patch manager every 30 days or so, based off of Swift Dialog. Last thing is, I love SF symbols. We are very, very critical of ourselves to keep consistency amongst our dialogues or even any sort of user interaction. So SF symbols is a great way to making just feel more like a tool that's built into macOS and not just something that's totally internal. Just a little cheat sheet. Just wanted to show these off. Just the very, very basic stuff with Swift Dialog that we kind of use. Obviously, titles, messages, images, which you can put URLs. You can do carousels. I'm actually going to highlight all of these in a video, which we do. So, why we chose to do it? Well, interactive UI. So we needed a tool where we could give our users our information, or even show them any processes, or collect information that we really needed to do. We needed something that was very consistent. We're very big on making everything branded and nice to look at, and also something lightweight that we can scale very, very easily. Want to minimize confusion with any sort of initiatives that were coming through. Any sort of initiatives such as, for example, I'll talk about it right after this, is our registration process, our orientation process, to go back and handle, for example, the issues we were facing with users coming into a new environment. Here's some prep and branding work that we do. We kind of put all of our branding stuff into a PKG, into a hard-to-reach user location. We pull those within the scripts. So the presentation is uploaded for everyone to copy and paste this if they want to use it. We pulled the light and dark mode logic as well. But everything, this is at the top of practically all of my dialogue prompts. It's even longer than this. But Keeping everything consistent, this goes at the top, bing, bang, boom, you're ready to kind of go. Here's a bit more of the consistency. Here's our dialogue template. So most of our dialogues that it requires user interactions will be that size. There's a banner, and we want it to be movable. Sometimes I'll take out the window buttons, and you'll see that, just so that users can't close it, because whatever we're doing, we need to force them to do it. And I'm using array expansion, so we put the dialogue first, we make another variable with the other parameters and the arguments that you need, and then you can just call it like so. So everything kind of remains consistent, and I'll show examples of how that all kind of looks. So, I'll first start. So this is a part of what we call registration orientation. Essentially, I wanted to build up this setup-like assistant experience for our end users as soon as they got started on their Macs, right? So going through all of the basics and fundamentals that you need to know as a user, as a general user, to get going on your Mac device, right? So we needed users to register to the company portal to get access to their Office accounts. We need to guide users, with very, very quick and easy, as well as verbose ways to, how you get connected to the VPN, or you're forced to log into our Zscaler proxy, and device registration is a big, big one, right? And again, we chose to use Swift Dialog here because it feels more like something that you would see as soon as you turn on your Mac, right? I have it in here in dark mode, but we really focus on that design aspect of making sure users feel at home when they're using it. A bit more on our orientation. So you can see we're showing, there's a video, it's not a real video, this is just a screenshot, guiding users through getting to company portal, which the way Microsoft set it up is you have to actually do it through self-service. You can't actually launch company portal. This was a big thing when we started implementing conditional access, really forcing the users, make sure you go to self-service, make sure you run it this way. Do not just launch company portal on your own. So this video is passed around quite a lot. It's used in the orientation for our new users who still need to register, and even when we were doing it in place, which was a big effort, making sure all the users went to self-service, launched the application, and registered that way, or ran the policy and registered that way. The gallery, or the slideshow, essentially is also a great tool that I use to just do multiple screenshots for users to get, access and make sure they log in properly into their Office accounts, and it's a great tool. Another big thing that we have a restriction on right now is we don't have an LDAP integration. I've been fighting for it for a long time, but due to bureaucracy, I am stuck with where we are. So what I don't have actually is user IDs. Well, I get user IDs. I don't get emails, or I don't get their user's email address. I don't get their full name. I don't get their department, and so on and so forth. So I thought to myself, I was like, well, how do I approach getting this information? Don't want to send out an email. I really don't want to do this manually. So we opted on Swift Dialog and our registration orientation. This is actually the first screen before all the other stuff that I kind of showed. Here, users will punch in their ID, they'll punch in their email address, their full name, their department, and division. Biggest part of this was actually our divisions, because we have 3 AD forests, so that we really needed to know which one they were a part of, which we weren't getting automatically. And so to this day, this is the first thing macOS users see on their device. This is for us, right, getting us back to it. Same thing, it's pretty much the exact same thing that you would see during Setup Assistant, obviously a bit more involved, but really focusing on getting the design aspect down. I can make it better as well. But this also, just right after we collect this information, just run the Jamf binary for the recons, just upload them straight up into Jamf. So, because it's a shell script, and I'm managing it via a daemon, or launching it via daemon, this just goes through without users ever seeing this again, without me ever worrying about it. It just kind of goes through. I also want to talk about why we chose to do this via daemon and not just as a regular Jamf policy. We know that if we run it at check-in, it'll be every 15 minutes. So if a user gets, their device, they may not see registration until 15 minutes or so. So we opted to say, run a daemon. So as soon as you log in, this is the very first thing you see, or it's after provisioning, this is the very first thing that you see. Goes back into the mindset of creating this environment that's efficient and clean for the end users, right? So even something as simple as a 15-minute delay in my book was not good, and I wanted to accommodate for that. So a bit more about leveraging Swift Dialog. This was a big one. Migrating over to Jamf Connect. So before, we were AD bound. Probably a lot of shaking heads there. I didn't understand the pains of it until I kind of got started. But we were doing a big migration over to Jamf Connect and unbinding these Macs, right? They were mobile accounts, so we needed to get them to be pure local. And we also didn't want to pre-download Jamf Connect because the daemon causes it to just launch instantly. So what we opted to do was to run the pre-checks behind the scenes and run this policy at a certain time where the users were available, but also kind of kidnap them. So we used the blur screen, so you can see it's blurred in the back, and it forced the Jamf Connect install to go through right then and there, while also guiding the users through what they'll have to do right after. It was very simple. It was just log out, but we know our users, and they will never turn off their Macs until they're yelled at. So forcing them to log out, or at least pushing them to log out, was a very, very big thing, because you can't force it. You can try your best, but you can kind of ask them to please log out. So this completed a forced logout right at the end, and it migrated the users over to Jamf Connect while also guiding them through what the new Jamf Connect login screen kind of looked at. So this was a very, very big win for us, because we had been fighting to get off of Enterprise Connect, get off of 80 joined Macs for quite a long time, and finally pushing our users to get through this. So I didn't need to send out documentation or anything like that. There was an email that went out, but if a user chose to ignore it, which they love to do, they would see this and say, oh crap, I gotta do this, and they were forced to. So what I also did, if you can see at the bottom right there, is the continue button was actually blurred out, grayed out until the download completed. So obviously they couldn't continue and do anything. So that was also implemented within Swift Dialog. But don't want to talk about Swift Dialog too much. I just want to highlight why we kind of use it. Moving on, another feeling about, say, having a Mac or having an Apple is you kind of have so many people on a Mac device in general, personally. You can find things that, this broke, this is wrong with it. So I wanted to bring that feeling back onto the enterprise environment. So what we opted for was actually a SharePoint site, where me and my manager and even some technicians will go there and upload documentation, announcements, initiatives for what we kind of want to do for the users. So there's an FAQ page, there's how do you submit a ticket. So you don't even need to be a Windows user to really get value out of this, or a Mac user to get value out of this. You can come in here and just go to the submitted user ticket, and it will take us to our ServiceNow, what it's called, ticketing process. There's guides on resetting your password. That was a big hassle when we were AD bound it. So there was that. There was the updates, because previously we were not doing conditional access via company portal, so users could just kind of get up and running with their O365 without worrying about it. But if you didn't register after that implementation went through, if you didn't register, you weren't getting into your Office account. So putting up that documentation there is really nice. And there's an article there about our patch manager, which I slightly spoke about, when that runs, what it does, why it does what it does, and even some guidelines on how to update your password to keep your password synced, your local and your AD password synced via Jamf Connect. There was a bunch of documentation and notices that went out for that, to get our users up and running. And what we actually noticed was actually a huge reduction in tickets. I didn't upload it here, but I created a ServiceNow dashboard to track how many tickets were coming over to Mac L2. And the downturn was around, I would say, 20 to 30%, or year over year, from 2024 to 2020, or 3 to 24, and a lot of visibility coming from the SharePoint side. We actually leverage this even a bit more using Teams channels. So when I go into a pilot production, like a large sample production pilot, we'll have a huge channel to speak to our users, give them announcements, and everything like that. It's a little less active than the SharePoint site is, but it's getting there. But what is active is our beta program. So the same thing or similar feeling that Apple does with their Appleseed programs, we want to create an environment with our close friends who really like to give us feedback, but we would have them in a smart group, knowing that I could just push out betas and pilots to them. So users can opt into this beta program, which will know them, and this will automatically, they will go get our pilots, they will come, they'll get our betas, or even have a direct access to myself and my manager to try new operating systems and upcoming initiatives and anything like that. So this is actually very feedback driven. This also has a corresponding Teams channel where those users really provide us feedback. So I'll have various different channels depending on the initiative. So there was it's still in what is called pilot right now, is updated configuration for our VPN, and I'll have, say, 20 to 30 users in there, and we'll kind of go back and forth and say, hey, I want your feedback to be this way. Can you update it? Can you give me your feedback every day or once a week, whatever it may be? Sometimes I like more consolidated information. Sometimes I like more, some more quick and easy information, depending on what the initiative really is. I wanted to talk a bit about parity. We work very hard because the Windows environment is quite a bit more mature than ours. We wanted to give them ideas, and we wanted to take ideas from them. So touching on this a little bit, I don't have crazy examples, but they actually learned from us via Zero Touch. So we have implemented Zero Touch deployments. It's not widespread just yet, but the technology is all set up and ready to go. So if you get a Mac, and you're an end user, you can just turn it on and get logged in, or a brand new Mac. But after we had implemented Zero Touch, they took a lot of meetings and advice from us for setting up their autopilot, which they haven't implemented yet, so I'll take that as a win. We also want to bridge these gaps in language and processes. So, I don't want, especially for support, I don't want them to feel like macOS is a totally different environment. I want them to feel like, hey, I'm doing the same concepts, just in a different, or with a different, visually just slightly different, right? Bridging that gap so that support feels much more confident working in our environment, because comparatively, a fleet of 250 to 300 versus a 20,000 Windows environment, it's quite a bit drastic difference. So the guys can tend to feel a bit lost or struggle when it comes to helping with the operating system. But we also wanted to really get to the point of building a consistent experience and expectations, because we don't want Mac users to feel like, hey, they're at a detriment because they use a Mac device and they can't get the integrations that Windows does, or vice versa. And we still want to create this parity. And how do we kind of go about that? This is in its infancy. Next thing, so it's a digital experience, or what's called experience strategy, and they have their own decks for health and monitoring. So it's a drive. It has been deployed to every platform. So our thin clients, Windows and macOS, and it's giving us visibility and even more tools to see where I can improve, where Windows is doing well, and where we are doing well, and where we can improve. But giving us some insight into all the information that we really kind of need, because as admins, the more information that we get, the better we can do, and the better experiences that we can provide. But at the same time, I want Macs to be better. I want our users to be happy on macOS, which they, over the last few years, have been very, very happy with the ways we kind of have been implementing things. We want to focus on what makes macOS macOS, which is reliability, power, efficiency, and also the ecosystem, which I'll touch on in a second. But also taking advantage of the small footprint that we have. So with the small footprint, it means, and less red tape, we can choose to design and implement things that are siloed to macOS to help improve the environment. So really push our users to say, hey, if there's anything that you see that can be improved upon, especially our close friends in the beta program, I really like to take advantage of that. What's next? So what I haven't talked about, which I really, really want to get, more involved into, is focusing on how do I make a Mac obviously feel more like a Mac, and that's the ecosystem. Right now, we do not have managed Apple accounts, which we're moving towards. But I feel like that will bridge the gap, or that will really allow us to get into the ecosystem and manage the ecosystem as in a holistic view, right? I really want to get involved with continuity. I actually floated the idea of bringing our iPads into our environment, into Jamf. They're currently managed by Intune. But they are, because the way Apple is designing iPad OS, getting more into that desktop space, I was considering like, hey, maybe it's a good idea we move a few iPads into Jamf and see how we can kind of manage the two. This also, I really wanted to highlight passkey implementations. So we're trying our best to get into this passwordless environment. We have an online client ready to go, and we can save passkeys using the online client. But if you have an Apple account signed in, your passkey can get synced across all your Apple devices. So I can sign into all my work accounts on my phone or even on my Mac just using Touch ID or Face ID because I have a passkey set up to sync across those devices. This is a big, big thing, but we still need managed Apple accounts to get through this. And it's a big struggle for us because many users have created corporate-like Apple accounts without them being federated and without them being controlled or managed by us. So this is a big initiative that I hope to bring us into this full-on ecosystem environment. Your phone, your watch, your iPad, all connected and all managed or working together harmoniously, which in a restricted enterprise environment right now doesn't work the way we kind of want. It doesn't just work. Next up is DDM and VPP. So I talked a little bit about how we have to package all of our applications and upload them and maintain them manually. A big struggle for us because we are not the owners of these applications, so we just update them whenever necessary, whenever people kind of ask us to do it. But with VPP, the struggle we had previously was security, and our NetSec team had disabled any sort of iCloud endpoints and ports purely because of worries about data exfiltration with iCloud. We fought the good fight, and we won the good fight, and we said, hey, open up those ports. We will compensate for them in other ways, so through our managed browsers and also restrictions in the software settings, so open up VPP for us. So now I can distribute, I can distribute applications through VPP and make it even easier for our end users to go and open up, open up self-service and go grab an app that's fully updated, right? Not worry that, hey, this is an outdated package. DDM, that's a big initiative. That's one that I'm really, really focused on because we all know software upgrades suck. And they still suck. But we've again, with the endpoints getting opened up, we really, really want to get DDM functional and do the managed software updates to get the users onto the highest operating systems that they possibly can. Really focusing on that and seeing what Jamf and the other MDMs can do with it. I'm still struggling with it, so anyone from Jamf, please help. But we really kind of want to do that. The last thing is personas. We really wanted to, or we are thinking about creating personalized environments based on your user profile. This is an initiative to kind of harden the Mac OS environment, essentially creatives and developers being the big two, but you'll have a different profile based on what you do. So there was, I was in the Workbrew session yesterday talking about how we can create default packages for all of our developers and also send that out as a baseline dev environment platform, whereas also for Creative Cloud for our creatives. It's a big initiative that we're really considering to get more involved in. And again, getting back to the idea that your Mac is yours and your Mac is personalized to you. How can I get you there the best way I possibly can? Here's the last one. Thank you, everyone. What I kind of wanted to display here is what we kind of think about on a daily basis on why we do the things that we do, right? We want to stay within the Apple experience. We wanted to use the best tools that we possibly can. Design was a big part of what we kind of do, and making sure everything kind of looks clean and efficient, and nothing is anything too crazy. While also talking about how we manage our onboards, or all the struggles that we've kind of faced, or some of the struggles that we've kind of faced. There's a lot of stuff that I would like to talk about, but really getting into how does the tool that I'm developing feel like a Mac? Does it not? Does it? Maybe that's a pro in some instances, maybe it's a con in others. But that was essentially what I really wanted to discuss here, and hopefully you guys were able to take away something from a fresh-faced admin. But thank you very much, and I'll take any questions. And here's some things. Want to throw this? Oh!
Thank you. Talking about the user experience and some of the pain points that you're going through, one of the pain points that I'm going through is we're a smaller nonprofit, probably about 60 users of Macs, and I recently have come on and trying to get my arms around just that much of an environment, and some of what historically has taken place in the past is personal Apple accounts.
Right.
And so it's not just personal Apple accounts, but personal Apple accounts with the company domain.
Yes. Yes.
And they've linked that to their own, so they can text with their numbers on their own. And it's this kind of convoluted mess. And so as I'm trying to work through figuring out how to, claw back our domain with managed Apple accounts, one of the complaints through some of my beta testers, I guess, using your vernacular, is we don't want to lose the ability to text or FaceTime, or we've got our personal Apple Passwords app, which I've stored my passkeys, which are from my phone, and all the rest of that. And so have you experienced any of that? How did you navigate that? Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. What is it called? We're floating the idea of taking back the environment quite a lot, and more or less leaning more so on Apple and their infrastructure developed around getting the federated accounts up and running. So they have a whole workflow process that's actually expanding practically every day or every week around separating the personal items from the managed Apple account. And I wish my manager was here, but essentially essentially you'll pull off all of the personalized information, and what you're left with is the ID. And I think they're asked to create a separate Apple account. More or less, as of right now, because it's so focused on what the user has to do, we've taken a break, and we're waiting on seeing if there's a better infrastructure. But if your base is relatively like 60 or so, like you said, it might be worthwhile spending a few months going down the line and saying, hey, this is the core documentation, here's the core process, let's get you off of these. You'll still have access to your iCloud and your iMessage and everything. We're just gonna take your personal stuff, you put it somewhere else, and now this is your work account. Leave it so. We have a lot more what is called leeway and teeth, like we say, because we're so restricted. So we can kind of like some of the time we tell the users this is how it's going to be, and you're going to have to. We'll support you in whichever way we can, but this is the end goal. We'll have to get to the end goal. I'll work with you how we get there. But that's an advantage of a full-on huge enterprise environment, which you may not have, but it might be worthwhile trying.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
To add to that, the environment of migrating managed Apple or personal Apple accounts to be managed, you can choose to migrate that data if their account has been, if they have not yet done specific things. Those are documented on Apple's documentation site. So if they have been using it truly as like a work Apple account, that is, not full of health data or Apple Pay information, you may be able to use the current migration tools to get them there. If you have not been doing that, I will point out that Passwords has a very robust export function now.
Yes.
And so getting their passwords, but maybe not their passkeys, out of that environment is possible. The passkeys implementation is also meant for supporting multiple tokens at a given time. So just re-registering people for a new passkey is not the end of the world. So there are good ways to approach that migration process that I think, when what Nakib says around, like, you have 60 people, you could probably approach this with labor. Doing that with 60,000 people might be a lot harder.
Right.
Other questions?
Anyone else? Okay.
Oh,
I was just wondering from the Windows side,
Yes.
how you deal with things like people wanting users to not be administrators on their computer and like other weird like Windows
Right.
specific things.
Right.
Yeah, like how do you push back on that?
That's actually a great question. So there's, and I'm going to incriminate myself here. macOS users right now are admins, which is bad. But there's a big initiative which is tied to our personas efforts next year to actually take away the admin rights. But what we're actually going to do is a large effort to hopefully create a granular level of access via elevated access privileges via Jamf Connect or otherwise. So Windows they are restricted. They are not an admin. If they need admin access, they need IT and they need to go get something. So the devs have a tough time. But for us, what we can do is create this granular level where certain accesses you need to go through elevated privileges, and other accesses maybe we can provide to a developer persona by default that's approved by compliance and security. So our hope is this user-based survey saying, hey, what level of access do you think that you'll need? What can we provide? And what do we need to take away? With, again, a fleet of 200 or 250 to 300, it's easier to do, and also working with them. But there is murmurings that all developers are going to end up on a macOS. I might be incriminating myself. And if that happens, then that granular aspect, in my opinion, works a lot better without me having to sit there and manage, like, why did this person need admin access, or somebody else, or, security yelling at me for a vulnerability, or they raised a VIT. So we're hoping this granular, process and also end goal state. I think that's it. All right. Thank you, everyone.